debated truths often denied. Scrutiny sharp as the southern winds bite. In our Aotearoa's halls we spark the fight. Scrutiny, the stakes are high. Questions that soar to pierce the sky. Democracy's fire never runs dry. In Aotearoa we ask the why. The echoes of history paint these walls, where whispers of change answer the calls. Aotearoa beats bold and strong. We challenge the wrongs to make it belong. They say it's a game, but we see the cost. Every decision, a line that's crossed. From the mountains high to the ocean blue, the people watch the power accrue. Scrutiny, the stakes are high. Questions that soar to pierce the sky. Democracy's fire never runs dry. In Aotearoa we ask the why. The echoes of history paint these walls, where whispers of change answer the calls. Aotearoa, we ask the why. The echoes of history paint these walls, where whispers of change answer the calls. The Aotearoa, we ask the why. We ask the why. Debate like
And welcome to tonight's Order Paper Podcast. Sorry that we're a bit of later than planned. Originally it was meant to be for 7 o'clock, but with the joys of running businesses, sometimes things don't go to plan. And my vehicle was at the mechanics today, which means when I was trying to move things around, basically I had a little bit less freedom, but it has fixed that warrant of fitness issue, ready for when it goes in for inspection on Monday. So how's Blake again?
Good, Sam. Yeah, bit of a same busy day for me, trying to get candidates ready for whenever the election may appear.
Yeah, well, that could be who knows? I mean, we might have a snap election. Before we know it, could be your birthday.
Yeah.
Considering, I mean, I'm more confident. My gut feeling is it's going to be closer to your birthday than to my brother's birthday. Put it this way, his birthday's in June.
Yeah. So we'll find out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to be covering the annual review of the Ministry of Disabled People. Why can't they call it Whaikaha?
Yeah, because I can't. Oh, dear.
Oh, I mean, you know, and they kind of all rolled it into one hit. Yeah. Okay, let's kick it off. And it will take its time. Gee, that's a lot.
Don't know why they don't cut all that out. Hey.
There we are. Some real people on their phones. No people at that desk. An interpreter. We got a chairperson. Yep, we got another interpreter.
And just these two.
So,
Yeah.
it's good to have
I
two.
can barely actually talk now.
110 something.
I don't think I'm going to ask. I think this getting close.
You might need to.
It's because I'm actually back in my committee. I'll bring you back.
Yes.
And the only Scrutiny Week Select Committee hearing that actually had interpreter. Oh, Helen White's there with her coffee cup. Oh, no, she's walking away. Oh, now the camera swapped and we've got some people sitting at seats.
I'll be seeing Alan on Tuesday, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, what's on Tuesday?
The delivery.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, the one that I probably won't be able to make it because of my work schedule.
Yeah.
Yes, why do the delivery has to be on a Tuesday? You should have done a Wednesday. Got more. Usually have more slack.
Right, well, good morning and welcome to the Social Services and Community Select Committee. So this morning we have Ministry for Disabled People 60 minutes. And what I might do is ask you to first introduce yourselves and then make some introductory comments. I will also make the observation that we have interpreters assisting us who are online. And so they'll ask everyone to just remember that and try to not talk too fast and allow time for the interchange of answers and questions and answers as we go. With that, thumbs yours, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to begin by making that same point about our NZSL interpreters. Nā mihi nui kia koutou katoa, ko Paula Tesoriere tōku ingoa, ko te teme whakarai hau I te Manatū Waikaha, the Ministry of Disabled People. My name's Paula. I'm the Secretary for Disabled People and Chief Executive of the Ministry. My sign name is Two Fists, moving in a forward direction like bicycle, reflecting my past as a Paralympic cyclist. And I'm sitting with colleagues wearing a light blue jacket and I have dark blonde short hair swept to one side. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Ben O'Meara, Deputy Chief Executive Policy and Insights, Ginny Baddeley, Deputy CE Strategy and Enablement, Rebecca Elvey, Deputy CE Outreach and Innovation, and Renelle Baker, Kaihotu, Chief Advisor Māori. So today is our birthday. It's been 1 year since the Ministry became a standalone public service department. As you've indicated, Mr. Chair, I'll just spend a few minutes outlining some key things that we have been doing over the past year before handing over to the committee for questions. We've been really focused on building a strong foundation since the machinery of government changes, and shifting to our new structure and operating model has allowed us to redefine how we can drive real and meaningful change for disabled people. Our new role means looking across sectors and thinking both short and long term about the outcomes that matter. To do this, we are focused on 6 strategic outcome areas across accessibility, education, employment, health, housing, and justice. These shape our priorities and work program, which include, firstly, the refresh of the New Zealand Disability Strategy, will be launched tomorrow morning and sets the direction for disability across government for the next 5 years. Last month, we launched the New Zealand Sign Language Strategy to ensure that NZSL thrives in Aotearoa. We have also made progress with other government agencies on implementing the recommendations that were made to the government by the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Committee. We've continued to provide advice on the Royal Commission into Abuse and Care response to shape the government's response. We have firmed up and started delivering on our accessibility work program, including strengthening the alternate format service across government. We have invested in initiatives to create employment opportunities in the public service, including our recently launched cross-agency summer internship program for disabled students, which saw 13 disabled students placed across 10 government agencies. And we've continued to build our ministry to achieve our vision. We also support cross-government priorities by providing second opinion policy advice, offering disability expertise and brokering opportunities for disabled people to influence policy. As part of our stewardship role, we keep an overview of and contribute to major issues such as transport and technology developments. Essential to all of this is the ministry's work alongside disabled people, tangata Waikaha Māori and their whānau to drive meaningful change. Their perspectives, experience and voice are essential. Everybody in Aotearoa has a role in improving the lives of disabled people, and so we will continue to build relationships across central and local government, business and industry, and the community to make change happen. Our ability to deliver our work rests on a strong and well-performing ministry. While disabled people still face many barriers, we are now in an excellent, strong position to accelerate progress. Our vision remains clear: disabled people thriving in New Zealand. I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you. First question, Ben.
So let's kick off with the first bit. How do you rate the opening statement?
Yes, by the way, the latest statement, the latest strategy that came out with nothing to write home about. It was just the updated version of what they were already trying to do that they haven't done. So just a lot of recycled stuff, unfortunately. In terms of her contribution, just vary a lot of what she said at many other conferences throughout the year. So just a bit of a recap, really. She's very good in the role, and I hope she continues. Because despite the current government throwing her under the bus, she's a good leader.
Well, it's good to hear. Okay, let's start hearing the questions and answers.
Thank you. Thank you for that overview and the work that you're doing. I've got a question around the employment side of things. You've mentioned the initiatives within the public service. I've seen that in the annual report as well. You will also know that the unemployment figure, the June quarter shows the unemployment figure for disabled people is 14.1%, the highest it's ever been since it was recorded in 2017. You would have also heard from disabled people that many are struggling to put food on the table and to access the basic necessities of life. What employment initiatives are underway that are new that Whaikaha is supporting or investing in to shift those figures? Your performance measures are just around the employment rate going up, underutilization going down, and the pay gap going down. But what are the initiatives that will get us there?
Thank you for that question. So there are a number of things that we're doing. So you're right, the employment gap between disabled people and non-disabled people in New Zealand is too wide. And that's due to a range of things. It's around lack of reasonable accommodation and supports for disabled people. It can be related to transport and wider infrastructure. We know that disabled people are less likely to have a post-school qualification, and we know that there continue to be discriminatory attitudes. So those are some of the barriers to employment. The things that we are doing are as follows. Firstly, members will see tomorrow when the New Zealand Disability Strategy is released that there are a number of actions that ministers have agreed to around employment, which we are confident will help with narrowing that gap. Members may have seen some of those draft actions in the strategy. The final strategy comes out tomorrow. I touched briefly on the internship program across the public service. That is really important because the public service has an opportunity to be a real role model in this space. This is the first time that we have gone across government with such an internship program with 10 agencies taking disabled young people and giving them a foot in the door. Some of those people had not worked for years and were just looking for that opportunity. The next thing that we will be launching in the first part of next calendar year is our employment website. So what we know from our engagement, both in the public sector and private sector, is that actually most employers want to do the right thing. Where some of the difficulties arise is in having access to good information and good advice and a good suite of policies. So we're responding to that by launching an employment website in the first part of next year, and we'll be doing a lot of promotional activity around that, and that's intended to be a support base for employers. We are also working much more closely with the private sector than we've had the opportunity to do in the past, and so working with organisations to really lift that number. We've also started working with the Institute of Directors and shaping up a work program around governance and other opportunities. So there is a lot to be done. In the New Zealand Disability Strategy, you will see that there are a range of indicators to measure success over the next 5 years. So those are the things that we are doing and leading most of that work, as well as contributing to other government initiatives.
Are you aware that organisations that have a government contract to place disabled people into work have had a change in their contract obligations such that they can only have 10% of their clientele who are non-beneficiaries, thus impacting a number of people who may not receive a government benefit and want work, who cannot be placed into work?
I'm not aware of that specific change, but we are really focused on closing that employment gap between disabled people and non-disabled people. The trend has been, that gap has trended the same for a very long time now, and it is really important. Our minister holds the employment portfolio as well as disability, and it's an area of great interest to her.
It's great to see you all this morning. Thank you all for being here. So, wanting to know what assurances you can provide that Whaikaha is genuinely making progress on its core mandate to drive meaningful change for disabled people, when the ministry's current performance measures focus largely on internal policy advice quality and do not yet include clear, measurable indicators especially for outcomes that rely on coordinated actions across other government agencies, for example, housing, education, and jobs.
Thank you for that question. You're right, there are only 2 performance measures. When a new agency is established, members may be aware, you have a relatively short period of time to develop your statement of strategic intentions, and we didn't have sufficient time to develop longer term indicators. So the 2 that we've reported on in our annual report, next year we will be reporting on more performance measures. Some of the things to bear in mind around demonstrating that outcomes for disabled people hopefully improve are work that supports the outcomes framework for the New Zealand Disability Strategy. So what you'll see tomorrow is a very clear outcomes framework that shows what the current data indicates and then where we expect that to go over the next 5 years. So that's really important, and it will be very clear when the implementation plan comes out next calendar year which agencies are responsible for that, and Waikaha has a key role in leading or contributing to that. The second set of measures that I think are important to be aware of is, I talked briefly about the recommendations that the government is implementing that the UN recommended to New Zealand in 2022. Those actions all sit on the Human Rights Monitor that the Ministry of Justice administers, and people can go into that and will be updated again early next year with where those different actions are at. And that's an important contribution in terms of measuring better outcomes. Just a couple of other very specific things that we're doing. We have worked really hard to improve the quality of data and evidence around disabled people in New Zealand. And one of the things we've done is join the social investment agency Mahi Tahi Data and Analytics platform so that we can start to have interactive dashboards and share the progress of disabled people in New Zealand. And we also fund research that is undertaken by the Donald Beasley Institute, who look at particular areas of outcomes for disabled people. So the long and short of that is this is a moment in time where we only have those 2 performance measures. They will increase in our annual reporting next year, as well as all of the other more external reporting things that I touched on.
Okay, let's get some commentary.
I don't know about you, and I watching it even again, I'm not impressed with her answer around the employment, that she wasn't up to speed with what Priyanka pointed out to her. That really bothered me when it first aired, and it bothers me rewatching it. The second point I would make about that is the fact that only 10% of beneficiaries who are disabled can apply for jobs. It's not very good. It should be at least.
Well, especially when you don't have employers who would who understand the needs of accessibility versus non-accessibility. Because that's something that I've noticed is what some people would regard as accessible is like asking for a participation trophy and failing to do the job. And, you know, it's quite an interesting number of people who can't stand participation trophies, but then they would sit there and do that when it comes to disabled people. Or like, you know, I mean, some people are just tone deaf to the realities of it. It's like the people who sit there and say, but disabled people get half-price taxis, so why do we need accessible buses and trains? Yeah, and it's like, have you tried getting a disabled taxi? They're not quite on demand like a normal taxi.
And
they don't work like Uber.
Sorry to everyone watching live or later about the camera being stuck, but at least you can still hear me. But what I will say is, I'm not happy about her not knowing about that. So that was a bit disappointing. Did you find it disappointing yourself?
Well, put it this way, I'm kind of a little bit clueless because this is a complete minefield for me. It is not an area that I've ever dealt with, and it's not one that I'm likely to deal with either. To me, a lot of the stuff that's being said there quite often goes over my head because it's in an area which I'm not used to dealing with. And it's not an area that I deal with on an everyday basis. Like, I mean, put it this way, my closest dealings with disabled people would probably be Tony Seymour.
Yes.
You know, like he's probably the closest. Like of all the people I know with disabilities, he's the one I probably know the most in and out of it.
Yeah.
And I will be honest with you, I don't know half the things that Tony goes through, and he's the one I know the most of.
But even if what I meant was from your perspective, even if you look at it from a proper like a normal business perspective, it's not. Not very good that, she doesn't know the current policy.
Yeah. I mean, I'll also be honest with you. If we look at my business, for customers with disability can access it to buy coffee, but someone in a wheelchair would never be able to work in it because they would not be able to get up into the coffee cart.
But the comment that I'm trying to make is not so much about disability in itself, is that a head of a company should know about changes that come.
Especially when the organisation is disabled focused. Yes, you are right.
Yeah. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. Now, just before we get on to more things, we've got Lord Alex of Super Chats here. And his Super Chat says, I spoke at the Hutt City Council Accessibility Committee a week ago and voiced concerns about stations on the Hutt Valley Line and how they need lifts installed, and were told that the decision is made by Greater Wellington Regional Council. And yes, that is correct, because Greater Wellington Regional Council owns the train stations, not Hutt City Council. I've got to be honest, most of the train stations, though, do actually have the right gradient for wheelchair access, though. I don't know what the exact gradient is, but most of the train stations on the Hutt line are reasonably accessible for the gradient for wheelchairs to function, either going over the overbridges or subway. Like the Manor Park one, oh my God, like it is, like, yes, it's gigantically huge. I'd hate to be wheeling up it in a manual wheelchair, but the way the gradient is structured and all that, it does meet the disability requirements.
To answer Alex's question, just make sure, Alex, if you're still watching, that you can reach out to me on Facebook or anything if you use any of that kind of thing, and I can fill you in, because I can't say much here, but I'm in the process of joining that committee myself, so I can help you with that.
I hope Upper Hutt has an equivalent committee being formed, or subcommittee.
I can't confirm or deny for.
That's all right. I think Upper Hutt's in for a bit of a shake-up this time around because they've got a new mayor, and I do believe the committee structures and all that will be getting shaken up, because I don't even think they've been announced yet.
Put it this way, we're getting a lot of new ones, and we may or may not be getting the one you're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about what Alex is talking about, not me.
And it may or may not be headed by a friend of the show.
Might not be headed by a friend of the show. What, Councillor Angel McLeod?
Yes.
Oh, that will be interesting. That'll be interesting. I wouldn't mind that. Angel will be quite interesting, considering I think she spent 2.5 years in the moonboat. Okay, let's continue with more questions and answers from the Select Committee.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to hear that that's coming, and we look forward to seeing it. So with those, the strategy coming out tomorrow and those expected things to be published next year, we can expect to see that whole of government performance framework that clearly links Waikaha's work and the work of partner agencies to measurable improvements in the lives of disabled people and their whānau. Fantastic. I've just got a couple more subs. So what steps are being taken to encourage agencies to work in accordance with enabling good lives principles and that approach for across government?
So in our strategic documents, we talk about being guided by Te Tiriti Waitangi and also the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the principles of enabling good lives. And last year, the government expressed its continued support for the principles of enabling good lives. We meet with the National Enabling Good Lives group. We are just right now in the process of agreeing a training program for our staff so that we can make sure that when we're working across government, we can talk about enabling good lives principles to the same extent as we can the UN CRPD. In our policy work across government, so in the period under review, we've provided advice on a significant number of policies that agencies have consulted with us on. That's part of our key role. And we often talk about the principles of enabling good lives, the 8 principles, and the importance of those principles in the lives of disabled people.
Thank you. I've just got
A bit of stuff on that.
Sure.
Paul, you mentioned meeting with the NEGL group. Is it true that they're going to be downgraded and will no longer be a ministerial advisory group?
We are working through with the National Enabling Good Lives group at the moment what our relationship agreement looks like with them.
What's the time frame on that?
We're working through in the short term, getting the training program established, and then looking longer term, what other key pieces of work we can do together. But one of the things that I'm really conscious of is the number of disabled people's organisations and representative groups, family groups who want to engage with Waikaha. And we work really hard to make sure that we have good relationships and agreements in place.
So you can't rule out that they won't be downgraded and will no longer be a ministerial advisory group?
That's a decision for the minister.
Thank you.
I was supplementary just on the what you said before about the IDI and the social investment agency. We heard from them this morning, and just really interested in the relationship interplay as much as it goes in between your department and the social investment agency and that IDI, the collection of data and the expression of that back to sort of dashboard into communities and also to decision makers. How is that relationship shaping up?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Early work, but we have a really strong relationship with the Social Investment Agency. I touched before that we are part of that Mahitahi platform, so we're able to share our data and create those interactive dashboards. And one of the things that we know in New Zealand is that we need to significantly improve the quality and availability of data in respect of disabled people. And so we'll be drawing on that information as well as survey information to report against the New Zealand Disability Strategy. We also work with the Social Investment Agency generally around what kinds of initiatives and longer term sort of planning can we think about so that we are supporting disabled people early for better longer term outcomes.
Thank you. Did you have a supplementary?
Thank you. So with the reporting, I was quite just surprised to see that it was simply recording the directional trends of like up and down. Can we expect to have more fulsome or different ways of reporting that data in next year's annual report? Like you're saying, it was set up really, the change happened really quickly. This was part of that change. So yeah, having up and down doesn't quite provide the transparency around the government agencies collectively improving the outcomes for the 850,000 New Zealanders living with a disability. Yeah.
Yeah. So the short answer is yes, we'll be working to refine and provide more granular information. The extent to which we can do that critically depends on the quality of administrative data that is available across government. And so that's why we are also putting quite a lot of effort into a cross-government community of practice in disability and data evidence and working group to lift the quality of data available across government to better understand outcomes for disabled people. And we also rely on general survey information. So what we're really pleased to see now, and this has been increasing in the last sort of 5 or so years, is the number of general surveys which include questions related to disability. So we're getting a much richer picture from survey data, and we need to lift the quality of administrative data so that we can give a more disaggregated, granular set of measures. So that's our intention rather than up or down.
So our work with the Social Investment Agency has a particular focus on identifying markers for disability within administrative data so that we can do more granular and detailed analysis based on particular groups. So it might be learning disabled, it might be people who have sensory disabilities, those sorts of pieces of work. And we need to develop what are described as code modules to enable that more detailed work to happen.
Thank you. I might ask another supplementary on that point.
Okay, so let's more analysis.
Yeah, can I just say he's not everyone's cup of tea. But I've met Joseph Mooney a few times, and he's not a bad bloke. He
I
seems,
think I've been on one of his select committees, but he wasn't there. He was coming in remotely from
Yeah.
somewhere else in the country.
he seems very interested in disability. But anyway, so yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about and you can talk to this from a general thing, but when you do stuff like this, it's in the ballot, but it's not very good that they kind of rushed their report this year, even though they're a year old. The MPs don't seem to be impressed about that.
Well, yes, but I mean, the MP's kind of kneecapped the agency at the same time.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm hopeful that they, in their second year, they get a bit more broader with what they can tell the scrutiny committee. So when they do this again in June or whenever it is, it's a bit more, outlined. But any exposure, a good exposure, and we're. It's good that we still have a ministry of some sort, even though it should be a bit fuller than it is. But anyway.
Yeah, at least it hasn't gone down the Googler as it potentially could have gone down. It's not quite as doom and gloom as it could have been. Still frustrating though. Still frustrating. Yeah. Okay, let's see more from the select committee.
Actually, just visiting a lot of my schools, personally across my region, there's obviously a very significant cohort of students who have a variety of learning disabilities, and one of the challenges is certainly identification. The other one is the appropriate resources to assist with that. Is some of your policy work, so obviously there's a crossover with social investment agencies to some degree, Ministry of Education. How much of that work is sort of sits within your bucket of sort of responsibility, so to speak, and how much is that in a relationship with the Ministry of Education, for example?
Yeah, we've got a really strong relationship with the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education were involved in the New Zealand Disability Strategy Working Group, as were officials from Waikaha and the community and other experts who looked at a series of actions, which will be revealed tomorrow, that talk about how to lift opportunities for disabled young people in education. Key to that as well is lifting the performance and quality of data. And so we have been working really hard with the Ministry of Education on that.
Thank you. New question, Paul.
Thank you firstly for all the work that you do, and I'm eager to see progress going forward. But just going back to the restructure and the focus on change processes, and could I just ask quickly how that would have impacted on your 2024-25 work program? And then following that, would that have been a reason for underspend on some of your work programs, and how did that all work out?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the short answer is yes, we did have an underspend of 4.38 million. The significant portion of that funding was funding given to us to establish the ministry. So around accessible properties, technology, for example. We do have approval to transfer that into the current financial year. And so we have a particular project aimed at spending that money. So the underspend is largely, it is due to just not having the runway to spend that money. We have a very comprehensive work program across the 6 areas that I touched on to make the greatest use of those public funds this year.
Morena, kia ora tātou. Just to reflect back, it's reflected in the report, but I just wanted to come back to your some of the early discussion around the underpinned by Te Titi o Waitangi. So can the ministry, can you provide some concrete examples of actions taken to uphold Te Titi, and then just to sup on that, and what measurable indicators exist to track the equity improvements of that based on the 6 that you referred to?
Kia ora, thank you for that question. So I think first and foremost, the evidence continues to show the disparity between disabled people and tangata Waikaha Māori. So there are a range of things that we are doing to honour our obligations under Te Tiriti, which as an agency, you know, I take my responsibilities really seriously. Key to that has been building a broader set of relationships. So we have involved tangata whakaha Māori in all of our major work streams, so on advisory groups and in our key projects like the New Zealand Disability Strategy, like our Accessibility Advisory Group and others. We have also broadened our relationship to this year establishing a relationship with the iwi Leaders Forum and working to strengthen our relationships with tangata whakaha Māori groups. We support the Turi Māori Advisory Group for the New Zealand Sign Language Board, so we've helped strengthen the group with work they wanted to do around leadership, for example. One of the things in establishing the new agency that I was very mindful of is making sure that the structure had the right roles. And so I was very keen to ensure that our Kaihotu Chief Advisor Māori is on the executive team, that we have a Pou Arahi who can guide us around the tikanga and approaches for the ministry. We also this year invested in a Kairangahau Māori researcher and a Māori engagement lead for the New Zealand Disability Strategy to really help us get into some of the harder to reach areas of New Zealand. I think in terms of your, well actually just relating to your specific question about indicators, we're also doing a lot of work through Renel's great leadership around working to increase the ministry's capability around Te Tiriti o Waitangi and taking a Te Ao Māori approach to our work. So our policy group, for example, did some training on making sure that we're bringing that perspective into our policy work. And around the indicators of success for tangata whakaha Māori, where there is data available, we want to be able to break that down in terms of how we measure against those 5 areas in the strategy. So that's going to be a focus of the work in the new year.
Just a quick one, if I may. Thank you. I'm encouraged. I like and I get connecting to what you're saying. It's encouraging. Paula, can you, so on the ground, if I was to kind of like drop my eyes and people like Paddy Poor come up in mind for me because she is constantly letting me know, and that's great. And I wonder how quickly or how progressively or how actually this will reach them, each whānau on the ground, whānau and families on the ground. I know I mean, that's like I don't know, Menel, but I'm just interested too. And probably it even connects to the question that my colleague asked recently about the group that the advisory group that might not happen or might not exist anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And you're right, I mean, these things have to hit the ground for disabled people and for tangata whakaha Māori. And, you know, it doesn't necessarily provide comfort for people, but the reality is we have spent the year really getting these work programs and strategies in place. The critical focus is on implementing those now. And so we are fully in that stage of developing the implementation plan. And I think the thing about the New Zealand Disability Strategy is there are actions which ministers have already agreed to embedded in it. So once we start delivering on those, then, you know, inevitably it will take some time for that to reach people. I think, you know, one of the things that we heard a lot through the development of the strategy was around housing for tangata whakaha Māori. And so we, again, this year took advantage of a Māori housing conference and started to build some, you know, on the ground connections there around, well, actually, how are we going to provide accessible housing for tangata whakaha Māori and really building awareness and giving support and information to those companies and organisations. So it's, you know, on all of us across government to make sure these things actually make a difference on the ground. Your question about the advisory group, I think what the member was asking about was the National Enabling Good Lives group, which the minister has determined that the ministry will have that core relationship with NEGL, but we have other advisory groups, a strategic advisory group, an accessibility advisory group, and we have tangata whakaha Māori equitably represented.
Okay, I think we need more commentary for Maria Mena Kapakingi.
Yeah, but if anyone doesn't know by now, since it's in film, she is now back in the Maori Party.
Temporarily. Enough to attend the AGM.
Yep. So that's going to be interesting.
I still wonder what's going to happen with Takota Ferris. That's always an interesting part. But besides the point, we don't have to worry about what's happening to Pāti Māori at the moment. Let's get back to summary from the questions and answers from our good old friend Marina Mino.
Yes. That's good how she's making sure that there's representation of her area. So that's fantastic. And it's good that they seem to have got the right advice from the proper Maori advisors and stuff like that. There's a lot of companies don't tend to do that these days properly, or as well as they could be doing.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, no, and I like the fact that Maria Mino asked questions about accessible housing. That was something that was definitely a good key to heart, because many people, many disabled people, particularly in wheelchairs, are often over-reliant on the public housing sector because the private housing sector just the market says no.
Yeah, but don't forget her children have a lot to do in the disabled community too, with their advocacy and stuff like
It
that.
doesn't surprise me, especially when her children, their mother is a social worker by trade.
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me. That feels so Maria Mino is the social worker part. Yeah.
Mm.
Let's get to more questions and answers from the.
Thank you. So just to confirm there that Māori Advisory Board was disestablished, is that correct? Oh, so you're not saying that it was like awesome. That's great to hear, because there was a Māori Advisory Group. Sorry, I can't remember the name, that disestablished at the end of 2023 or the beginning of 2024.
I'm not sure what group you're referring to.
That's
We've really absolutely strengthened the number of groups that we have. The very, very early groups that helped establish the ministry, the composition of those groups no longer exist. But what we have now is a strategic advisory group. We support the Disabled People's Organisation Coalition. We support the New Zealand Sign Language Board, Turi Māori. So there are a range of organisations of which tangata whakaha Māori are represented on. So I'm not aware of a.
Awesome. I was like, I'm pretty sure there was one, but I couldn't remember the name. So I'll go back and do written questions later on. Just one more supplementary on that. So with the disability strategy that's coming out tomorrow, very exciting, and obviously went out to the public for feedback on that. Is it correct that those focus areas were chosen without consultation with disabled people? And what could, like now in hindsight, what could you have done to improve that consultation period for choosing which areas would be highlighted in the strategy?
So ministers wanted to have a strategy that would focus on a number of areas where demonstrable progress could be made over 5 years. So that is really different than the previous New Zealand disability strategy, which was over a 10-year period. It was a strategy without actions embedded. Those actions took place, action plans were developed, in subsequent years. But what the minister wanted was areas that we know through multiple sources of feedback and results in terms of outcomes, that those 5 areas are critical to improving for the lives of disabled people. What I would add is the strategy is an important piece of our work, but it's just one piece of our work. And so when you then add to that our accessibility work program, for example, which touches on the built environment, transport, digital accessibility and emergency management, those are also areas, particularly transport and the built environment, that we also heard through the strategy are really important for disabled people. So when you look in totality across our work program, we believe we are tackling issues of real importance for disabled people.
So you're confident?
I've had a fair bit of feedback that one of the areas that was raised as an important area through that consultation was living, but that wasn't then chosen as a category. You've mentioned that ministers wanted actionable change in areas that make a difference to the lives of disabled people. Was that feedback that you received as well on cost of living being an important category? And if so, why did that not make the cut?
I think, ultimately, these are decisions for the government in terms of what sits within the strategy. I think if you look at some of the underlying things in the strategy, there's probably two things I'd say. One, the strategy is broken into two parts. It has a vision and principles, and those are intended to apply to all things that government does, not just those 5 areas, but in terms of the way government delivers and develops its services and policies. Those vision and principles are intended to apply across the board. Then the second part of the strategy is the specific actions across those 5 areas. So we know that employment, for example, is a lever to assist with cost of living, and we've touched on what we're doing in employment and that gap. So we did receive a wide range of feedback on the strategy, and ultimately what sits in that strategy were those 5 areas that.
Did you receive feedback on cost of living being a significant area that people wanted to see change on? That should be a category though.
In terms of
Not a category in its own right. So yes, we received feedback around the cost of living being an issue that is important for disabled people at the moment, as it is for many other New Zealanders, but not so much that it should be a category for action.
Sorry, I'm just wanting some clarity here. I've heard a few questions where I just haven't heard the answer. One is, did you consult? Because that was a question that came up. And I think the answer was that the priorities were set by the government and you didn't consult because that was their job. Am I right about that?
So the Minister determined, with advice from us around the critical areas affecting the lives of disabled people, and that advice comes from well understood poor outcome areas and areas where we need to improve. So the initial consultation was advice based on what we understood and knew. Then the disability strategy itself was the subject of wide consultation throughout New Zealand.
Is that your 10-year plan versus this 5-year low-hanging fruit thing?
No, the 10-year strategy is the previous strategy.
Okay.
This strategy, launched tomorrow, is the new refreshed New Zealand disability strategy, which takes the next 5 years.
It is the 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got just a couple.
Okay. So do you think there's any clarification on what's happening with the 5-year strategy, the 10-year strategy, and what does it all mean?
So the sense I get from all of this is it's quite already been, before the consultation was even done, it sounds like Louise had it predetermined already. And that's what the reference being made by Priyanka was about around, a lot of the stuff that people spoke about didn't end up being
predetermined answers.
Yeah, didn't even make the cut because the files were already predetermined beforehand.
Great.
So my issue is, and I don't know if you want to comment on this or not, what the point of having consultation if they know what they want to do already? Yes, they should have consultation, but it shouldn't be predetermined. It should be based on what they hear.
Yeah, that is something frustrating about. Sometimes consultation is seen as window dressing. Councils get a lot accused of it. I've seen so many situations where consultation has made changes or positive changes, but some people's idea of consultations, well, if I say something, but I don't get the outcome I want, I consider myself not consulted at all. Now, predetermined answers doesn't help that thing, but also part of consultation is you put out an initial proposal. You sit down there, you look at, people sit there and rate it, and then you sit down there and refine it based on the feedback you get. Sometimes that feedback might be where it gets completely shelved. A good example of consultation where 97% sat there and said, bidding the bill was the regulatory standards bill. But hey, according to David Seymour, if you sat there and said that you suffered derangement syndrome, rather than sit there and accept the fact that it's a bad piece of law.
and then only took a week for the party to vote it in to work out that it wasn't any good.
Well, all you heard from like last night's show, Maria Kanetai mentioned that the regulatory standards bill, like Tom McClay, knows that it will cause us problems with trade.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. So yeah, just on the being not being even considered though, that is really bad. Like the fact that they didn't even seem to, they completely ignored some of the topics that were raised, especially in the current economy where some disabled people are isolated at home at the moment.
Well, you've got Mark Cameron got there at the moment. He's currently having to isolate because he's on the transplant waiting list or something.
Did they ever publicise what
I don't know. I hope it happens soon, but by the sounds of it, he must be close. He must be close if he's waiting for literally the phone call to say, get yourself to the hospital.
Let's hope nothing goes wrong because we can't afford. Hopefully, it doesn't mean a by-election because he's on the list, right? So
yeah, exactly. No, he is on the list, but I mean, you wouldn't want to wish someone to be dead. I mean, yeah, to be honest, like, I might not agree with his politics, but hey, I hope you get transplant because that's, because you've still got a lot to give.
Yeah, so let's hope he.
And it helps have footage for the show.
Yeah. Let's hope he recovers and we don't end up with another issue in Parliament.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least the list transfer is just like a straight change in MPs. Okay, let's get some more from the committee before we take our final words.
Questions arising out of your report for the annual report 2024-25. So about 1 in 6 New Zealanders are disabled according to Stats New Zealand 2023 household survey. I'm curious, how does that compare to sort of similar-ish countries in terms of that one in 6? Is that relatively standard across countries, or are we sort of high end, the low end, median?
It's quite hard to make those sorts of comparisons. What we do know is that from the 2023 survey, we used measures and a definition that are very well aligned with international best practice in terms of how you measure disability. So we have a greater confidence in that 1 in 6.
And could you provide committees maybe afterwards if that just some comparative information be useful?
Yes, by all means.
Thank you. And just out of that report, I note that some outcomes have improved for disabled people. It says comparing census results between 2018 and 2023 shows a reduction in the percentage of disabled people with no qualification. There are increases in the percentage of disabled children participating in education and in the percentage of disabled people employed, including increasing funding to whakaha Māori and Pacific disabled people. And small improvements also made in housing quality for disabled people. Do you have any data on what helped shift that in a positive direction?
There will be a range of things. Happy to follow up with some specifics, but I think you're right. There have been some shifts. Overall, we know that there is much more work to be done to improve outcomes overall.
It'll be great if you're able to circle back with any information that can sort of help inform our committee and what things are helping move things in the right direction. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, I had a new question from Priyanka.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Your annual report states quite clearly that disabled people are more likely to experience severe housing deprivation compared to those who are non-disabled. Some of the top issues that are raised with me are related to housing. One of that, of course, is parents of often adult intellectually disabled children who are in residential care facilities. Also those young people who are forced into such facilities because there are no alternatives, disabled people who would rather flat but have no other choice. Now, Whaikaha had a program, My Home, My Choice, that was working on security in those residential facilities and outside of it, but also alternatives to residential facilities. It was funded for 4 years. Is that program still ongoing or not?
So the responsibility for disability support services, which includes the provision of residential care, moved to MSD, as did any work on that program. So Whaikaha is not doing specific work on that program. It may be a question that the committee would have for MSD. What we are doing is, as I touched on briefly before, just circling back to housing being one of the key outcome areas in the New Zealand Disability Strategy.
So that program has moved to MSD from whakaha?
Yes.
Okay.
Whether or not MSD is continuing that program, sorry, it would be a question for MSD.
Given that whakaha's role now unfortunately has been complicated given the removal of DSS, that's of course a ministerial decision, not yours. But whakaha still has the responsibility to improve the lives of disabled people, to engage with disabled people to ensure that the work that you're doing actually meets that aim. How do you get that information? Now, given that most of the impact or the turbulence to disabled people's lives has been in the DSS space, and that's not within your purview. Also, the residential care facilities, given the prioritizing of entries that was brought into play in August last year, do you get information from disabled people on the impacts of that then informs your work to improve their lives?
Yes. So the longer answer to that question is there are approximately 50,000 people in New Zealand, disabled people who receive disability supports. There are 851,000 disabled people. And our job is to ensure that disabled people across the country thrive. The provision of disability supports is critical for those 50,000 people. And as you say, MSD has that responsibility. We get feedback about a broad range of areas, including the provision of disability supports. We got really good feedback through the New Zealand Disability Survey, engagement on the importance of DSS and what improvements people would like to see. And we also got feedback on a wide variety of areas that we consulted on and other things that people would like to see strengthened in the strategy. We have worked really hard, and I'll come back to these advisory groups because we have a number that we work incredibly closely with. The disabled people's organisations, the leadership team meets with regularly. All of the other advisory groups that we have, which also include family and whānau. So we are getting feedback regularly about things. And some of those groups, while we didn't specifically ask them at the initial stage, back to the member's question about consultation on the strategy, we certainly have received feedback that those 5 areas are really important to disabled people across the groups that we work with.
So just one step on that. Bearing in mind that the decisions around residential care facilities don't sit with whakaha, I take that point. However, you have a stewardship role.
Yes.
And therefore, I would assume that you would be aware of what's happening in that space and therefore the impact on disabled people. Back in August last year, there was a new prioritization regime. Those who were subject to a court order, people exiting mental health facilities, oranga tamariki, it was very narrow. We were all hearing that families had worked for 5 years to place a loved one in a suitable residential care facility. That was gone overnight, and that wait lists were gone overnight as well. To your knowledge, has that been lifted so far? And what are you hearing from people in that who were waiting to get into residential care facilities?
I'll be as helpful as I can, noting that that question is really more appropriate for MSD.
So the decision around that is appropriate for MSD, but you do have a stewardship role to advocate for disabled people in that space, though.
My point on that was the question about whether or not that has been lifted is a question for MSD. You are right, our stewardship role in terms of outcomes for disabled people, we do have that focus. At this point in time, we are focused on measuring and monitoring outcomes at a system level for disabled people, not at this point a service delivery level. In time, we may have the capacity to do that, but at the moment, it's at that outcome level. Where we do have information of the nature that you're talking about, we absolutely do pass that on to MSD, and we have a really good relationship with our DSS colleagues. We also continue to maintain really strong relationships with some of the big providers like IHC and Idea Services, for example. And so we have a work program with them, some of which we hope will strengthen some of the things you were talking about.
Your question, Maureen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think that's our last one for the night. Any other comments you want to add with Priyanka's one?
Just extremely odd that they don't liaise with each other. That's all.
It does make me think about there is a neighbour across the road from my house. One of the people in there is in a wheelchair, disabled. but the fact that the rest of the house is a normal flat. That's something I have noticed, including I've seen the accessible car. The frustrating part is there isn't a disabled car park outside or near the house. So the accessible car is quite often part you see floating around different car parks in the street for where it can get a car park.
So is it one of those cases where it's a disabled person or injured person living with their partner?
No.
No,
it's flatmates, and it's like the person the group of people there are younger than me.
okay.
Like they're your age.
Right.
It's like your normal 20s, well, I'd say late 20s, flat.
Yeah.
It's not quite your normal run of the mill. So it's not a house that specializes in, people with disabilities or like independent living, but they, or semi-supported living. It's definitely one literally where the house itself is like, basically it's one disabled flatmate and a flat of 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that sort of scenario. I mean, I know I've delivered there for Moshams, and they were quite pleased that immediately on the first delivery, making sure I put the package not in front of the doorway.
Yeah,
that's someone like me. You can tell when you walk up to a property and someone's in a wheelchair or someone's with wheelchair usage goes in there because they have ramps right up to the door. That goes right into the door, which is not normal for most houses that you deliver to. So that is immediately a big telltale sign.
Yeah. And I suppose any final comments from you before we go?
Publicly, have you heard who has been given the announcement for East Coast electorate for the Labour Party for 2026? Have you heard the name?
No.
Jo Luxton.
But I thought she was leaving.
I have from a source who has confirmed Jo Luxton has moved from South Island, from Rangitata, where she was in the last election, back to her home community where she grew up in Gisborne, and is standing for the East Coast electorate for the next election.
Good for her. I was just double checking. BHN should be still running because they had that event last night.
I thought it was tonight.
Tonight, rather. So I don't know. Are they running right now?
No. I don't think they've got a show tonight.
Okay.
But I'm getting tired.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I wondered why you were cutting. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm tired. I've got a coffee cart that I've got to open at between 6:30 and 7 tomorrow morning.
That's all good. And thanks for having me tonight, Sam. And
no problem.
Good luck with your coffee cart tomorrow.
Well, fingers crossed. I mean, at least Craig Rennie hasn't announced that he's going to be turning up to the market this week. I wouldn't mind having the Craig Rennie dollars. That part. I'm just not sure how he'll get around the Damien factor.
It's next week.
Yeah, I know, but he will need to do it. But he might be turning up this week to meet Damien and get permission.
Yeah. Anyway, you'll find out.
Yep. Okay, we'll be back on Sunday. We will cover more Scrutiny Week of what happened today on Friday. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you all back at 8 p.m. on Sunday.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching The Order Paper, your express ticket to the New Zealand House of Representatives. Every episode, we unravel the complex world of legislation, debate, and democracy. From bills to select committees, we've got it all covered. From our team of political commentators who will dissect and explain what's happened so you can remain up to date on what's happened in the Aotearoa, New Zealand Parliament. To support our channel, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/itsinthaballot. The Order Paper podcast is brought to you by It's